The monitor above bed 7 screamed its alert at 11:47 p.m., and I watched the numbers drop in real time. Blood pressure 70/40, heart rate 132, oxygen saturation plummeting toward the low 80s. The woman on the gurney was seizing, her body rigid and trembling, foam gathering at the corners of her mouth. "Dr. Reyes, we need benzos now." The ER nurse, Jennifer, 20 years of trauma experience in her steady hands, was already drawing up lorazepam, not waiting for my order because sometimes protocol takes a back seat to saving lives. I moved to the bedside, my brain running through differential diagnoses at a speed my exhausted body couldn't match. 73-year-old female, previously healthy, collapsed during Sunday dinner with her family. No known medical conditions, no recent illness, no warning signs, just a grandmother eating pot roast with her grandchildren and then the floor rising up to meet her. "Push 2 milligrams, I said, though Jennifer was already injecting it into the IV line. "And get me a full tox screen. Everything. I want to know what's in her system." "Family's outside," another nurse called from the doorway. "They're asking what happened." I didn't have an answer yet. But standing in that fluorescent-lit emergency bay, watching an elderly woman's body wage war against something we couldn't see, I had a feeling that made my stomach turn cold. This wasn't a stroke, wasn't a heart attack, wasn't any of the natural catastrophes that bring people to emergency rooms on Sunday nights. This was something else, something that the toxicology screen would reveal in approximately 90 minutes, something that would make me wish I'd chosen a different profession. Because when the results came back, they wouldn't just tell me what poisoned Margaret Chen, they'd tell me who did it. And the answer would be sitting in the waiting room, crying, asking if her grandmother was going to be okay. My shift at St. Halstead Hospital's emergency department had started 8 hours earlier with the usual chaos of a Sunday evening. Minor injuries from weekend adventures gone wrong, chest pains that were probably anxiety but might be cardiac events, the steady stream of human fragility that never really stops, just ebbs and flows with the clock. I was 4 months into my internal medicine residency, but tonight I was covering the ER, part of our rotation designed to teach us how to think fast, decide faster, and live with the consequences. Dr. Amelia Santos, the attending on duty, had 30 years of emergency medicine experience and a reputation for being both brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. "Reyes," she'd said when I arrived for handoff, "3 rules for tonight. 1. Trust your instincts but verify everything. 2. When you don't know, say you don't know. 3. The family is always lying about something. Not maliciously usually, but always about something." I'd nodded, filing that 3rd rule away as cynical wisdom from someone who'd seen too much. I didn't realize how literally she meant it. The first 7 hours passed in a blur of sutures and x-rays, and explaining to concerned parents that their child's fever was viral and would pass with time and Tylenol. I was documenting a discharge when the call came through from EMS. "St. Halstead, this is Medic 12. We're inbound with a 73-year-old female, unconscious, GCS 7, vitals unstable. Family reports sudden collapse during dinner, no warning, no prior history. ETA 4 minutes. I grabbed my tablet and headed to the trauma bay, adrenaline already sharpening my exhausted senses. Dr. Santos appeared beside me, moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this thousands of times. "What do you think?" she asked. "Could be anything. Stroke, MI, pulmonary embolism, arrhythmia. What does your gut say?" I hesitated. My gut was saying something felt wrong about this case before I'd even seen the patient. Healthy 73-year-old women don't just collapse during dinner without reason. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "Good answer. Let's find out." The ambulance bay doors burst open, and the paramedics wheeled Margaret Chen into Trauma 7. She was a small woman, maybe 5'2", dressed in what had probably been a nice outfit for Sunday dinner. Navy slacks and a cream-colored blouse now rumpled and stained. Her eyes were half open but unfocused, her breathing shallow and rapid. 73-year-old female, the lead paramedic reported as we transferred her to our gurney, hands moving in synchronized choreography born of repetition. Margaret Chen, family says she was eating dinner, suddenly said she felt dizzy, then collapsed. Witnessed loss of consciousness, approximately 10 minutes before our arrival. Initial vitals at scene, BP 90/60, heart rate 120, respirations 28, oxygen sat 86%. We started oxygen, established IV access, gave 1 liter of normal saline en route. Medical history? Dr. Santos asked, already examining pupils with her pen light. Family says none. No medications, no known allergies, no recent illnesses. They seemed genuinely shocked. I began my assessment, hands moving through the systematic examination that had been drilled into me. Airway patent but compromised. Breathing rapid and shallow. Circulation weak but present. Neurological status severely altered. She responded to painful stimuli but nothing else. Pupils are reactive but sluggish, Dr. Santos noted. 4 millimeters bilateral. Dr. Reyes, what's on your differential? I ran through the possibilities while my hands continued working, placing monitor leads, checking IV access, preparing for whatever came next. Stroke, intracranial hemorrhage, severe sepsis, acute MI, massive PE, toxic ingestion. Stop there. Toxic ingestion. Why? Sudden onset, previously healthy, altered mental status without focal neurological deficits. I paused, thinking. But she's 73. Accidental overdose seems unlikely. Unlikely isn't impossible. Order a full panel. CBC, CMP, cardiac enzymes, lactate, tox screen including extended opiates, benzodiazepines, and tricyclics. Get a CT of her head non-contrast, and someone bring me that family. The next 10 minutes were controlled chaos. Blood draws and imaging orders and medication administration, all while Margaret's vitals continued their unstable dance. Her blood pressure kept dropping despite fluids. Her heart rate climbed higher. And then, at 11:47, she started seizing. That's when I knew this wasn't natural. Strokes don't present like this. Heart attacks don't cause this pattern. Even massive infections typically show warning signs. This was poisoning. I just didn't know with what yet. The lorazepam stopped the seizure after 45 seconds that felt like an hour. Margaret's body went limp, her vital signs still critical but stable enough that we could breathe for a moment. Get me toxicology fast-tracked, Dr. Santos ordered. I want results in 90 minutes, not 3 hours. And someone bring the family back, now. Jennifer disappeared to handle both tasks while I continued monitoring. The CT scan would take another 20 minutes to complete and read. The labs would trickle in over the next hour. But the toxicology screen, that was our answer. Hidden somewhere in Margaret Chen's blood, waiting to be discovered. Dr. Reyes, Dr. Santos pulled me aside, her voice low. What do you know about toxidromes? Characteristic symptom patterns associated with specific classes of poisons, I recited. Cholinergic, anticholinergic, sympathomimetic, sedative hypnotic, opioid. Which one fits what you're seeing? I looked at Margaret, the altered mental status, the seizure, the cardiovascular instability. Could be anticholinergic, could be sympathomimetic, could be mixed, could be intentional, Dr. Santos said quietly. The words hung in the air between us like an accusation. You think someone poisoned her? I think a healthy 73-year-old woman collapsed during family dinner with no medical explanation, and the only people who know what she ate and drank are about to walk through that door. She met my eyes. Remember Rule 3, Dr. Reyes. The family is always lying about something. The Chen family filled the consultation room with the kind of anxious energy that comes from not knowing if someone you love will survive the night. 6 people crammed into a space meant for 4. 3 generations of worry and confusion and fear. I recognized the social dynamics immediately. The oldest son, probably in his late 40s, stood at the back with his arms crossed, trying to project control in a situation where he had none. His wife sat in one of the chairs, eyes red from crying. A younger woman, maybe 30, perched on the arm of the couch, scrolling through her phone with the nervous energy of someone who couldn't sit still. 2 teenagers, a boy and a girl, huddled together near the door, looking lost. And then there was the granddaughter. She was maybe 19, 20 at most, sitting perfectly still in the center of the chaos. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Scrubs, the kind worn by nursing students or medical assistants. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she was staring at the floor with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something about her stillness bothered me. Everyone else was moving, fidgeting, expressing their anxiety through motion. But she sat like a statue, barely breathing, her face carefully blank. Dr. Santos began the conversation with the practiced compassion of someone who'd delivered bad news too many times to count. I'm Dr. Santos, and this is Dr. Reyes. We're taking care of Margaret. She's currently stable but in critical condition. We're running tests to determine what caused her collapse. Is she going to be okay? The older son asked. Mom's never been sick a day in her life. She walks 3 miles every morning. She's healthier than I am. We're doing everything we can, Dr. Santos replied, which was true but not an answer. I need to ask you some questions about tonight. Walk me through everything that happened before she collapsed. The wife spoke up, her voice shaky. It was just normal Sunday dinner. We do it every week at Mom's house. Everyone brings something. We eat, we talk. The kids show Grandma their schoolwork. Who was there tonight? I asked, pulling out my tablet to take notes. All of us, the older son said, gesturing around the room. Me, David Chen. My wife, Linda. Our kids, Tyler and Emma. He pointed to the teenagers. My sister, Jessica. The woman on the couch looked up briefly from her phone. And my niece, Lily. He indicated the still quiet girl in scrubs. She lives with Mom. Takes care of her, even though Mom doesn't need much taking care of. I wrote down the names, noting relationships. And what exactly did Margaret eat tonight? Pot roast, Linda said. I made it. David brought mashed potatoes. Jessica brought a salad. Mom made her apple pie for dessert, but she didn't get to eat it because she trailed off, tears starting again. Did everyone eat the same food? Yes, David confirmed. We all had the same meal, from the same serving dishes. And no one else got sick? No, just Mom. Dr. Santos leaned forward slightly. What about drinks? Did Margaret have anything to drink? A pause, small but noticeable. Water, Linda said. She always drinks water with dinner. Just water? No wine, no juice, no... She had tea, Lily said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken, and everyone turned to look at her. Grandma had her special tea, the one she likes before bed. I made it for her before dinner because she said she had a headache. What kind of tea? I asked, my pen hovering over the tablet. Just herbal tea, from the box in the pantry, the kind she always drinks. Can you be more specific? What brand? What herbs? Lily finally looked up, meeting my eyes. Something flickered across her face. Anxiety, maybe, or calculation. I don't remember. Just the one from the pantry. The one she always has. Dr. Santos stood. I'm going to need someone to go back to Margaret's house and bring me that tea. The exact box and anything else she consumed tonight. Medications, supplements, anything. Why? David asked, his voice rising with alarm. You think something she ate made her sick? We're exploring all possibilities, Dr. Santos said diplomatically. The toxicology screen will help us understand what's in her system. But the more information we have, the faster we can treat her appropriately. Toxicology? Jessica stood abruptly. You think someone poisoned her? We think she ingested something that's making her sick, I said carefully. Whether that was accidental or... It was an accident, Lily interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp. It had to be. No one would hurt Grandma. Everyone loves Grandma. The room went silent. Dr. Santos studied Lily for a long moment before speaking. Of course. We just need to know what the accident was so we can fix it. David, can you go get that tea for us? I'll go with him, Tyler volunteered quickly. The teenager seemed eager for any excuse to leave the tension of the waiting room. After they left, Dr. Santos continued questioning, asking about Margaret's daily routine, her relationships, any conflicts or stresses in the family. Everyone insisted she was beloved, healthy, happy, no enemies, no drama, nothing that would explain why she was fighting for her life in Trauma 7. But I kept watching Lily. She'd gone back to staring at the floor, her hands still folded in her lap, and every few seconds, her right thumb would rub against her left palm in a small, repetitive motion, a self-soothing gesture, the kind of thing people do when they're trying to stay calm, when they're hiding something. 90 minutes later, David and Tyler returned with a grocery bag containing a box of herbal tea, several prescription bottles that belonged to Margaret, and a half-eaten apple pie. Dr. Santos and I examined the contents in the medication room, away from the family. The tea was a common brand, chamomile and lavender, purchased at a regular grocery store. The prescription bottles were equally mundane, a statin for cholesterol, baby aspirin for cardiac health, vitamin D supplements. Nothing that would cause acute toxicity at prescribed doses. Could be contaminated tea, I suggested. Heavy metals, pesticides, possible but unlikely to cause this rapid A presentation. Dr. Santos held the tea box up to the light, examining it carefully. And this is sealed, factory packaging intact. My pager buzzed. Lab results. We pulled up the computer terminal, and I felt my stomach drop as I read through the findings. Basic metabolic panel. Normal except for slightly elevated creatinine suggesting early kidney stress. Complete blood count. Unremarkable. Cardiac enzymes. Negative for heart attack. CT head. No stroke, no bleeding, no structural abnormality. But the toxicology screen. The preliminary toxicology screen showed elevated levels of diphenhydramine, the active ingredient in Benadryl. Not just elevated, massively elevated. The kind of levels that don't happen accidentally when taking recommended doses. Anticholinergic toxicity, Dr. Santos said, pointing at the numbers. That explains the altered mental status, tachycardia, seizure. How much diphenhydramine would she have to ingest to reach these levels? I did the math quickly in my head. Therapeutic dose is 25 to 50 milligrams. She's showing levels consistent with at least 20 to 30 times that. Maybe more. Could she have accidentally overdosed? Taking 1 or 2 pills by mistake? Sure. But this amount? I shook my head. This is intentional. Either she took multiple pills deliberately, or someone gave them to her. We stood in silence for a moment, the implications settling over us like heavy fog. Margaret Chen has no history of depression or mental illness, Dr. Santos said finally. No indication of suicidal ideation. Her family describes her as happy and healthy. Which means someone poisoned her. Dr. Santos closed the lab results and turned to face me. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start treatment for anticholinergic toxicity, supportive care, activated charcoal if she can protect her airway, possibly physostigmine if she deteriorates. And we're going to call the police. Do we tell the family? We tell them we found the cause and we're treating it. We don't tell them it was intentional until we know more. She paused. And Dr. Reyes, that granddaughter in scrubs, she made the tea. She has medical training, which means she knows about medications. And she was very specific about forgetting which exact tea she used. You think Lily did this? I think someone did this. And she's the most medically knowledgeable person in that family. She has access, she has opportunity, and she's lying about something. I can feel it. But why? What's her motive? Dr. Santos looked at me with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much human darkness. In my experience, Dr. Reyes, there are 3 reasons people poison their relatives: money, mercy, or madness. We need to figure out which one we're dealing with before Margaret Chen wakes up and tells us herself. If she wakes up, I thought, but didn't say. If we're not already too late. We started treatment immediately. Activated charcoal through a nasogastric tube to bind any remaining poison in Margaret's stomach. IV fluids to support her blood pressure and help her kidneys clear the toxins. Cardiac monitoring for arrhythmias. Benzos on standby in case she seized again. And then we waited. Anticholinergic poisoning is a slow burn. It takes hours for the body to metabolize and eliminate the toxins. Margaret would either gradually improve as her system cleared the diphenhydramine, or she would continue deteriorating until her heart gave out or her kidneys failed. The police arrived at 1:37 a.m. 2 detectives, both looking like they'd been pulled from their beds for this. Detective Marsh was older, maybe 50, with the weathered face of someone who'd spent decades hearing the worst stories humans could tell. His partner, Detective Young, was newer, maybe 30, still carrying an optimism that this job would eventually grind away. Dr. Santos briefed them in private while I continued monitoring Margaret. When she returned, her expression was grim. They want to interview the family individually, she said, starting with Lily. They're setting up in conference room A. Should I be there? No. Your job is here, keeping Margaret alive. Let the detectives handle the investigation. She paused, then added quietly, but I want you thinking about this case, Dr. Reyes. Something doesn't add up. Lily's behavior, the family dynamics, the way everyone was so quick to say how much they loved Margaret. In my experience, when a family is that insistent about how perfect everything is, something's wrong, I finished. Exactly. Over the next 2 hours, Margaret's condition slowly stabilized. Her blood pressure came up. Her heart rate decreased toward normal. She stopped seizing, but she remained unconscious, her brain still struggling under the chemical assault. I reviewed her chart obsessively, looking for details I might have missed. 73 years old, retired elementary school teacher, widowed 5 years ago, 3 children. David was the oldest, Jessica the middle child, and there was a younger son named Michael who hadn't been at dinner tonight, apparently living out of state. Margaret owned her home outright, had a modest pension and Social Security. No significant assets beyond the house, according to the preliminary background the detectives were pulling together. Nothing obvious to kill for. So, if not money, then what? At 3:15 a.m., Detective Marsh found me in the break room, drinking coffee that tasted like it had been brewed during the previous administration. Dr. Reyes, got a minute? I followed him to the conference room where they'd been conducting interviews. Detective Young was typing notes on a laptop. The Chen family had been sent home except for David, who'd insisted on staying in the waiting room. We've talked to everyone, Marsh said, settling into a chair with the heavy sigh of exhausted middle age. And I've got to say, this is one of the stranger cases I've handled. Strange how? Strange because everyone tells the exact same story. Same timeline, same details, same description of Margaret as a perfect grandmother who everyone adores. It's too consistent. Maybe they're telling the truth, I suggested. Or maybe they agreed on a story before we got here. He pulled out a notebook. Tell me about the granddaughter, Lily Chen. What's your read on her? I thought carefully before answering. Quiet. Controlled. She was the only one not showing obvious anxiety when we first brought the family back. That struck me as odd. Did she say anything that stood out? She admitted she made the tea, and she claimed not to remember what kind it was, which seemed like a strange thing to forget when your grandmother is dying. Marsh nodded. She's a nursing student at the community college, 20 years old, lives with Margaret rent-free while she finishes her degree. According to the others, she's devoted to her grandmother. Helps with shopping, cooking, household chores. Perfect caretaker. So what's the problem? The problem is her phone. Detective Young looked up from his laptop. She was very reluctant to hand it over. Said she needed it to stay in contact with the family. We had to get a warrant. Did you find something? The detectives exchanged glances. We found a lot of something, Marsh said. Search history from 3 days ago. Overdose symptoms Benadryl. How much diphenhydramine is fatal? Do hospitals test for antihistamine poisoning? And my personal favorite, can elderly people survive Benadryl overdose? My coffee went cold in my hands. She was researching how to poison her grandmother. Looks that way, but here's where it gets interesting. Marsh pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. This text message, sent to a number we're still trying to identify, sent yesterday afternoon. Tomorrow night, after everyone leaves, we'll finally be free. Free from what? That's what we need to find out, and we need Margaret Chen alive to tell us. At 4:45 a.m., Margaret started to wake up. It began with small movements, her fingers twitching, her eyes moving beneath closed lids. Then her breathing pattern changed, becoming more purposeful, less automatic. By 5 a.m., she was stirring, making soft sounds of confusion. I was at her bedside immediately, Dr. Santos appearing seconds later. Margaret? Dr. Santos spoke clearly but gently. Margaret, can you hear me? You're in the hospital. You're safe. Can you open your eyes? Margaret's eyelids fluttered, then opened. Her gaze was unfocused at first, wandering around the room before finally landing on Dr. Santos's face. What? Her voice was a raspy whisper. What happened? You collapsed during dinner, I explained, moving into her line of sight. Do you remember that? She frowned, thinking. Dinner, Sunday dinner. I was eating. Pot roast. Linda's pot roast. Her eyes widened slightly. Did I have a stroke? No, not a stroke. Dr. Santos pulled up a stool, sitting so she was at Margaret's eye level. Margaret, you ingested a large amount of diphenhydramine. Do you know what that is? Benadryl, she said immediately. Teachers always made the best patients. Educated, articulate, able to communicate symptoms clearly. But I don't take Benadryl. I'm not allergic to anything. You didn't take any antihistamine medications recently? No allergy pills, no sleep aids? No, nothing like that. She tried to sit up, and I helped her, raising the bed so she could see us better. How much diphenhydramine was in my system? I glanced at Dr. Santos, who nodded permission. Enough to cause a seizure and cardiac instability. Enough that it couldn't have been accidental. Margaret went very still. Someone poisoned me. It wasn't a question. We believe so, Dr. Santos confirmed. Margaret, I need you to think very carefully. Who had access to your food and drinks tonight? Everyone. The whole family. We always serve everything family style. Pass the dishes around. She closed her eyes, trying to remember. But I also had tea before dinner. Lily made it for me because I had a headache. Tell me about the tea. Just my regular chamomile, from the box in the pantry. Lily knows which one I like. She opened her eyes again, and I saw fear there now. You think the tea was poisoned? The tea itself was fine, I said, but someone could have added something to it. Ground up pills, liquid medication. You wouldn't necessarily taste it, especially in strong herbal tea. Margaret's face had gone pale. No, not Lily. She wouldn't. She's my granddaughter. She lives with me. She takes care of me. Has your relationship with Lily been good? Dr. Santos asked carefully. Any conflicts? Any arguments recently? No. Well, Margaret hesitated. There was something, a few weeks ago, but it wasn't serious. Tell us anyway. Margaret looked uncomfortable, like she was betraying a confidence. Lily wanted to drop out of nursing school, Said it was too hard, too stressful. But I told her she needed to finish. Her mother, my daughter Sarah, she died when Lily was 15. Car accident. Since then, I've tried to be there for her, help her build a good life. Nursing seemed like a stable career. How did Lily respond when you insisted she stay in school? She was upset. Said I didn't understand the pressure she was under. But she agreed to finish the semester at least. Margaret's voice was getting stronger as the medication cleared her system. She wouldn't poison me over that. That's insane. Margaret, Detective Marsh said, appearing in the doorway. He must have been waiting for her to wake up. I'm Detective Marsh. I need to ask you some difficult questions. She nodded, squaring her shoulders with the kind of determination that had probably made her an excellent teacher. Ask, does Lily benefit financially from your death? The question hung in the air like an accusation. My will. I have a will. Margaret's hands gripped the bedrail. Everything is split equally among my 3 children, David, Jessica, and Michael. But I have a life insurance policy. A small one, $50,000. That goes to Lily, to help with school expenses. Sarah asked me to set it up before she died. Wanted to make sure Lily would be taken care of if something happened to me. $50,000. Not a fortune, but for a 20-year-old struggling through community college, living rent-free with her grandmother, that might be enough to feel like freedom. Tomorrow night, I said quietly, after everyone leaves, we'll finally be free. Everyone turned to look at me. That's what Lily texted someone yesterday, I explained. We'll finally be free. Margaret's face crumpled. No, please no. She's all I have left of Sarah. But Detective Marsh was already moving, pulling out his phone to coordinate with his partner. We need to bring Lily Chen in for formal questioning. Now. Lily Chen was arrested at 6:42 a.m. at Margaret's house, where she'd returned after the family left the hospital. According to the officers who made the arrest, she was calm, didn't resist, didn't cry, just asked if her grandmother was alive. And when they said yes, she nodded once and held out her wrists for the handcuffs. By 8 a.m., Margaret had been transferred to the ICU for continued monitoring, though she was rapidly improving. The diphenhydramine was clearing from her system, and with supportive care, she would make a full recovery, physically at least. I was finishing my shift, so exhausted I could barely see straight, when Detective Marsh found me again. She confessed, he said without preamble. I stopped mid-stride. What? Lily Chen. She confessed. Didn't even wait for a lawyer. He rubbed his face, looking as tired as I felt. Said she'd been planning it for 2 months, researched the dosage, figured out how much would be needed, bought the pills gradually from different pharmacies so no one would notice. Why? I asked, though I thought I knew. She's pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. 4 months along, Marsh continued. Been hiding it under baggy scrubs and oversized sweatshirts. The father is someone she met at school, another nursing student. They want to get married, move to Oregon where his family is, start fresh, but Margaret wouldn't let her drop out of school. Exactly. And without Margaret's approval, Lily didn't have any money for the move. No way to break free. So she decided the life insurance payout was her ticket out. He paused. She thought it would look natural. Elderly woman, sudden cardiac event. By the time anyone thought to test for toxins, she'd be long gone. I thought about Margaret's face when she realized what had happened. The betrayal, the grief. What happens now? I asked. She'll be charged with attempted murder. Given the premeditation and the method, she's looking at serious time. Maybe 20 years if she's lucky. Marsh shook his head. 20 years old, pregnant, and she threw her life away trying to kill the one person who was supporting her. The text message, I said. Who was she texting? The boyfriend. He claims he didn't know what she was planning, and we haven't found evidence he was involved, but we're still investigating. He started to walk away, then turned back. You know what the worst part is? Margaret told me she would have helped Lily. If Lily had just told her about the pregnancy, about wanting to leave, Margaret would have figured something out. Maybe not $50,000, but something. She loved that girl. Past tense, I noted quietly. Yeah, Marsh agreed. Past tense. I went home and slept for 12 hours. When I woke, the sun was setting again, and I had 17 missed calls. Most were from other residents wanting to hear about the case. Hospital gossip spreads faster than antibiotic-resistant bacteria. But 3 were from Dr. Santos. I called her back. Reyes, good, you're up. Are you sitting down? Should I be? Yeah, you should. She took a breath. We got the full toxicology report back. The extended panel we ran because something about this case bothered me. My stomach tightened. And the diphenhydramine wasn't the only thing in Margaret's system. There were also trace amounts of digoxin, a cardiac medication derived from foxglove plants, therapeutic in proper doses, fatal in excess. How much digoxin? Not enough to kill her, not even enough to cause symptoms on its own, but enough to suggest that someone was building up toxic levels gradually, planning for her to die of a heart attack that wouldn't be questioned. Dr. Santos's voice was grim. The diphenhydramine overdose was the obvious murder attempt, but the digoxin poisoning was already in progress. Someone was playing the long game. Lily? I don't think so. The digoxin has been in Margaret's system for weeks, maybe months. The accumulation is too gradual, too careful. This is someone with medical knowledge and patience, someone who's been planning this for a long time. My mind raced through the implications. Margaret doesn't take digoxin. It wasn't in her medication list. Exactly. Which means someone's been giving it to her without her knowledge. Small doses, consistent administration, building up to toxic levels that would eventually cause cardiac arrest. But if Lily was planning the Benadryl overdose, why would someone else be slowly poisoning Margaret with digoxin? That, Dr. Santos said, is what the police are trying to figure out right now. Because either we have two separate murder attempts by two different people, which would be an astronomical coincidence, or Lily didn't act alone, I finished. Or Lily was covering up for someone else's murder attempt that was taking too long. By the time I made it back to the hospital, it was 9 p.m., and the emergency department was experiencing its nightly chaos. But Dr. Santos pulled me into her office, where Detective Marsh and Detective Young were already waiting with Margaret Chen. Margaret looked better. Alert, color returned to her face. IV still in place but no longer needing oxygen support. But her expression was haunted. "Dr. Reyes," she said when she saw me. "They told me about the digoxin." I nodded, taking a seat. Detective Young pulled up something on his laptop. "Mrs. Chen, we need you to think about who had regular access to your food and medications. Who visited consistently? Who might have been able to add something to your meals or drinks over an extended period?" "That's just it," Margaret said, her voice shaking. "Only Lily lives with me. David and his family visit for Sunday dinners, but that's only once a week. Jessica lives across town, barely visits at all. Michael's in Colorado. No one else has that kind of access except..." She stopped, her eyes widening. "Except?" Marsh prompted. "My brother, Frank. He lives 2 blocks away. He comes over 3 or 4 times a week. We have coffee together in the mornings sometimes. She pressed her hand to her mouth. "Oh God, he's been making me coffee, bringing it over already made, says it's his special blend." The detectives exchanged glances. "Does Frank benefit from your will?" Detective Young asked. "No. Everything goes to my children. Frank has his own money, his own house. We're not particularly close, but we're family. We look out for each other." She paused. "At least I thought we did." "Margaret," I said gently, "has Frank been having any financial problems? Any recent stress or changes in behavior?" She thought about it. "He's been more attentive lately, the past few months, visiting more often, being nicer. I thought he was just getting older, wanting to spend time with family." Her voice broke. "Was he poisoning me?" "We need to talk to Frank," Marsh said, standing. "Mrs. Chen, does he know you're in the hospital?" "Yes, David called everyone. Frank wanted to visit, but She faltered. "I told David I was too tired for visitors. That was this afternoon before you told me about the digoxin." "Good, that gives us time." Marsh was already on his phone. "Young, get a warrant for Frank's house. Look for digoxin. Sources of foxglove. Anything that suggests he's been preparing cardiac medications. And get someone watching his place. If he runs, I want to know about it." The next 12 hours unfolded like a medical mystery being solved in real time. Frank Chen's house yielded a treasure trove of evidence. Bottles of digoxin stolen from his late wife's medication supply. She'd died 3 years ago from heart disease. Internet search history showing research into dosing schedules and symptoms of toxicity. A handwritten ledger documenting dates and amounts of digoxin he'd administered to Margaret over the past 4 months. But the real revelation came from his financial records. Frank wasn't broke, but he was desperate. $500,000 in debt from bad investments and online gambling. His house was mortgaged beyond its value. Credit cards maxed out, and the debt collectors were closing in. Margaret's house, modest but fully paid off in a neighborhood experiencing rapid gentrification, was worth $800,000. If Margaret died and her estate was divided among her 3 children, David would inherit his share. And David, Frank's nephew, was the kind of person who helped family. Frank had been counting on David giving him a loan using his inheritance, or maybe even selling him Margaret's house at below market value to settle family business. It was a plan built on assumptions and desperation, and it was being carried out with medical precision, one carefully measured dose at a time. The digoxin would cause gradual heart weakness. Margaret would develop symptoms over months: fatigue, confusion, nausea. Eventually, her heart would fail. It would look natural for a woman in her 70s. No autopsy, no questions, just grief and inheritance. But then Lily had her own plan. Her desperate, impulsive, visible plan that involved massive overdose and obvious poisoning. And Lily's plan had exposed Frank's. At 3 a.m., I found myself back in the ICU, checking on Margaret one more time before my shift ended. She was awake, staring at the ceiling, tears running silently down her face. "Mrs. Chen?" I approached carefully. "Do you need anything? Pain medication? Something to help you sleep?" "My brother wanted to kill me," she said quietly. "My granddaughter wanted to kill me. 2 people I loved, 2 people I trusted." I didn't have a response to that. Medical school teaches you how to treat physical trauma. They don't really cover betrayal. "The police arrested Frank an hour ago," she continued. "They found everything. The ledger, the pills, all of it. He confessed too. Said he was sorry, said he didn't think it would really kill me, just make me sick enough to have a natural heart attack." She laughed bitterly, as if that makes it better. "I'm sorry," I said, because what else could I say? "You know what the worst part is?" Margaret turned to look at me finally. "I would have helped them, both of them. If Lily had told me she was pregnant and needed money, I would have figured something out. If Frank had come to me about his debts, I would have helped him work it out. Maybe not the full amount he needed, but something. They didn't give you the chance. No. They decided murder was easier than honesty." She closed her eyes. "I'm 73 years old, Dr. Reyes. I've been a teacher, a mother, a grandmother. I've tried to be a good person, and my reward is being poisoned twice by people I love." I sat down in the visitor's chair, suddenly too tired to stand. "When I was in medical school," I said slowly, "one of my professors told us that medicine would teach us about human nature in ways we weren't prepared for. That we'd see people at their absolute worst and their absolute best, sometimes in the same day." I paused. "I think I'm starting to understand what he meant." "What will you do with that understanding?" Margaret asked. I thought about it. About Lily's cold calculation and Frank's desperate rationalization. About the family dinner that should have been normal and became a crime scene. About all the ways trust could be weaponized. "I'll remember that healing isn't just about fixing bodies," I said finally. "It's about seeing people clearly, the good and the bad, and trying to help anyway." Margaret reached out and took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong for someone who'd been dying 12 hours ago. "Then you'll be a good doctor, Dr. Reyes. Better than good. You'll be one who understands that sometimes the sickness isn't in the blood." "Where is it?" I asked, though I thought I knew. "In the heart," she said. "Not the physical heart you can treat with medicine. The metaphorical one that breaks when people you love try to kill you." We sat in silence after that, doctor and patient, both trying to process a kind of damage that no medication could heal. The case made national news within 48 hours. "Grandmother survives double murder plot," the headlines screamed, as if tragedy was entertainment. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with interview requests, which I ignored. This wasn't my story to tell, but the medical implications fell into my lap whether I wanted them or not. 3 days after Margaret's admission, Dr. Hammond called me into his office. Dr. Santos was already there, along with someone I didn't recognize, a woman in her 50s wearing a blazer with a hospital administration badge. "Dr. Reyes," Hammond began, "this is Dr. Patricia Morrison, head of patient safety and quality assurance. She's been reviewing the Chen case." I shook Dr. Morrison's hand, trying not to let my exhaustion show. I'd been working 30-hour shifts followed by court appearances to testify about Margaret's treatment, and I was running on caffeine and adrenaline. "Dr. Reyes," Morrison said, settling into a chair with a tablet in hand, "your management of this case has been exemplary. Quick thinking, appropriate diagnostic workup, and ultimately life-saving intervention. However, I have some concerns about our protocols." "What kind of concerns?" I asked. "How often do we routinely screen for poisoning in elderly patients presenting with acute altered mental status?" She pulled up something on her tablet. "I've been reviewing our ER admissions for the past year. We had 17 cases of elderly patients presenting similarly to Margaret Chen. All were diagnosed with strokes, cardiac events, or natural deterioration of health. None were tested for toxicology beyond basic screens." The implication hung in the air. You think we missed other poisoning cases, I said. I think it's possible. Digoxin poisoning in particular mimics natural cardiac decline. Elderly patients presenting with fatigue, confusion, nausea. How many times do we assume age-related decline instead of considering toxic exposure? Dr. Santos leaned forward. You're proposing expanded toxicology screening as standard protocol? I'm proposing we at least consider it in cases where the presentation doesn't fully match the presumed diagnosis, where family dynamics seem strained, or where someone stands to benefit from the patient's death. Morrison looked at me. Dr. Reyes, what made you suspect poisoning in Margaret's case? I thought back to that first moment in the trauma bay. Healthy patient, sudden onset, no clear medical explanation, and I hesitated. Lily's behavior. Something about how controlled she was while everyone else was panicking. It felt wrong. Clinical intuition, Morrison noted, typing something. Not something we can protocol into a flowchart, but valuable nonetheless. The family is always lying about something, Dr. Santos said quietly, repeating her rule from that first night. Not always maliciously, but the idealized version they present versus reality. There's usually a gap, and sometimes that gap contains the answer. Hammond nodded slowly. So we train residents to consider social context alongside medical symptoms. Look at who benefits, who has access, who shows incongruent emotions. Without turning every family dinner into a murder mystery investigation, I added, because most of the time, a stroke is just a stroke. Agreed, Morrison said, but most of the time isn't all of the time. The Chen case proves that. 2 separate family members attempting murder through medical means, and without expanded toxicology screening, we would have only caught one. She stood, preparing to leave. Dr. Reyes, I'll be working with Dr. Hammond to develop new protocols based on this case. I'd like your input as we draft them. Your perspective as the physician who actually managed the acute presentation is invaluable. After she left, Dr. Santos turned to me. How are you holding up? Honestly, I'm exhausted, and I keep thinking about what Margaret said, about how people she loved tried to kill her, about trust being weaponized. Medicine teaches you that lesson eventually, Santos said. People are capable of terrible things, even to the people they're supposed to protect. Parents who harm their children, spouses who poison each other, caregivers who steal from vulnerable patients. How do you deal with it? I asked. How do you keep treating people with compassion when you know what they're capable of? She considered the question carefully. You remember that for every Lily and Frank, there are 100 family members who stay up all night at their loved one's bedside, who donate kidneys, who advocate fiercely for appropriate care. The bad ones make headlines, but they're not the majority. Margaret doesn't get that comfort, I said. For her, the betrayal is permanent. No, Hammond agreed. She doesn't, but you gave her something else. You gave her the truth, and you kept her alive to deal with that truth. That's not nothing, Reyes. The legal proceedings unfolded over the next several weeks. Lily Chen pleaded guilty to attempted murder in exchange for a reduced sentence, 15 years with possibility of parole after 10. The pregnancy complicated her incarceration, but ultimately she gave birth in a prison medical facility and placed the baby for adoption. The father disappeared from the picture entirely. Frank Chen went to trial. He was convicted of attempted murder and received 20 years without parole. During sentencing, he tried to apologize to Margaret, who sat in the courtroom and stared straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge him. David Chen hired lawyers to contest the will, arguing that neither Lily nor Frank should benefit in any way from their attempted crimes. The legal precedent was clear. Criminals don't profit from their crimes. But the emotional precedent was messier. David was Frank's nephew. Lily was his niece. Family dynamics don't fit neatly into legal frameworks. Margaret survived all of it with a kind of quiet dignity that reminded me why I'd gone into medicine in the first place. Not to fix the unfixable, but to bear witness to resilience in the face of unimaginable pain. 6 weeks after her admission, Margaret returned to St. Halstead for a follow-up appointment. I wasn't her primary care physician, but she requested that I be present for the exam. Dr. Santos agreed, understanding that sometimes healing requires familiar faces. Margaret walked into the examination room under her own power, moving with the careful precision of someone who'd been reminded of their mortality. She'd lost weight. Stress and trauma will do that. But her eyes were clear, and when she smiled at me, it reached those eyes. Dr. Reyes, you look better than the last time I saw you. I could say the same, I replied, pulling up a stool. How are you feeling? Physically? Fine. My cardiologist says my heart function is normal, The kidney stress resolved. No lasting damage from the toxins. She paused. Emotionally? That's more complicated. I can imagine. Can you? She wasn't being confrontational, just curious. You're what, 27? 28? Have you ever had someone you trust completely try to kill you? No, I admitted. I haven't. Then you can't imagine. But I appreciate the attempt. She settled into the patient chair, and I began the routine examination. Blood pressure, heart sounds, lung sounds, all the mundane checks that confirmed she was, medically speaking, recovered. I sold the house, she said while I listened to her heart. Couldn't live there anymore. Too many memories of Lily making coffee, Frank sitting at my kitchen table. I bought a small condo downtown. Secure building, doorman, neighbors I don't know well enough to trust or mistrust. That sounds lonely. It is, but it's safe. And right now, safe feels more important than connected. She was quiet for a moment. David wants me to come to Sunday dinners again. At his house this time. I haven't decided if I can handle that. I finished the cardiac exam and made notes in her chart. All normal. All recovered. All except the parts that medical science couldn't measure. Can I ask you something, Dr. Reyes? Off the record? Of course. Do you think I was a bad grandmother? A bad sister? I keep replaying everything, trying to figure out what I did wrong. What drove them to this? I set down my stethoscope and met her eyes. Margaret, I think you were a human being dealing with other human beings, all of whom had their own pain and problems and terrible choices. Lily was scared and pregnant and saw money as an escape. Frank was desperate and drowning in debt. Those were their problems, their decisions, not your failure. But if I'd been more attentive, then what? You would have realized Lily was pregnant? Maybe. Would that have stopped her? Maybe not. She might have just chosen a different method, a different timeline. I leaned forward. I've learned something in medicine. You can't save people from themselves. You can offer help, provide support, create opportunities, but you can't make someone choose honesty over deception or courage over cowardice. They have to make that choice. And if they choose wrong, then you survive it, which is what you're doing. I paused. Medical science brought you back from poisoning, but surviving the betrayal? That's all you. And the fact that you're sitting here, making plans to move forward, considering Sunday dinners, that's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've seen in this entire case. Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Thank you, Dr. Reyes, for everything. For being suspicious when everyone else thought I was just having a stroke. For pushing for the extended tox screen. For sitting with me in the ICU when I couldn't stop crying. That's the job, I said simply. No, she corrected. That's being human. The job is the medical care. Being human is the part that actually matters. The changes at St. Halsted happened gradually but definitively. The expanded toxicology protocols went into effect 3 months after Margaret's case, requiring consideration of toxic exposure in any elderly patient presenting with acute altered mental status, especially when family dynamics seemed strained or financial benefits were at stake. In the first 6 months after implementation, we identified 3 additional cases of probable poisoning. 2 were accidental, medication errors by well-meaning but confused family caregivers. But 1 was intentional, a son slowly poisoning his father with insulin to speed up his inheritance. We caught it early enough that the father survived, and the son faced justice. I thought about what Dr. Morrison had said. How many cases had we missed over the years? How many natural deaths were actually murder? We'd never know for sure, but we could do better going forward. Marcus Chen, no relation to Margaret, pulled me aside one day in the hospital cafeteria. He'd heard about the case through the hospital gossip network, which operated faster and more efficiently than any electronic medical record system. I've been thinking about your Halo investigation last year, he said, sliding into the seat across from mine. About trust and systems, and knowing when to question what the data tells you. Yeah? You were right. Not just about Halo's limitations, but about the broader principle. Sometimes the most important diagnostic tool is the small voice in your head saying, this doesn't make sense. Data can't replace that. Algorithms can't code for that. He stirred his coffee thoughtfully. I've been incorporating that into my work, teaching the analytics team to build systems that surface anomalies instead of hiding them, to question patterns instead of just accepting them. That sounds like good science, I said. It's also what saved Margaret Chen's life. You questioning why a healthy woman suddenly collapsed. Dr. Santos questioning why you were so suspicious. Detective Marsh questioning why the family story was too perfect. He smiled. Turns out the most advanced diagnostic tool we have is skepticism paired with curiosity. And good toxicology screens, I added. That too, Doctor. Hammond included the Chen case in his orientation lecture for new residents, just as he'd done with the Halo case. I was there when he presented it, watching 8 new first-year residents react with the same mixture of horror and fascination that I'd felt when living through it. Medicine, Hammond told them, standing at the front of conference room B, is not just about treating diseases. It's about recognizing when the disease isn't the problem, when the threat comes not from biology but from human intention. He pulled up Margaret's initial presentation, the vital signs, the clinical picture, the differential diagnosis that could have led to a simple stroke workup. Dr. Reyes, who was the resident managing this case, tell them what made you suspicious. I stood, uncomfortable with the attention, but understanding why this mattered. The granddaughter was too calm, I said. Everyone else was appropriately anxious, but she was controlled, almost detached. That incongruence made me look harder at the whole presentation. And what did looking harder reveal? That she'd been researching overdose symptoms on her phone, that she'd texted someone about being free the next day, that she'd made the tea that contained the poison. I paused. But if we'd stopped there, we would have missed the bigger picture. The digoxin poisoning that had been happening for months. The uncle's desperation and planned natural murder. Which teaches us what? Hammond prompted. One of the new residents raised her hand. That we need to look at the complete clinical picture, not just the acute presentation? Exactly. Medicine happens in context. Social context, family context, economic context. A patient is never just a collection of symptoms. They're a human being embedded in a web of relationships, and sometimes those relationships are toxic in ways that no lab test will reveal. He dismissed them to their first shifts, and I watched them file out with the mixture of confidence and terror that comes with the white coat. Think they'll remember this case? I asked Hammond after they'd gone. Some will. Others will forget until they face their own version of it. He closed his presentation. But that's how medicine is learned, Reyes. Not from lectures, but from living through cases that challenge everything you thought you knew. Is that what Margaret's case did for me? What do you think? I considered the question. A year ago, I would have approached Margaret's case as purely medical. Identify the toxin, treat the symptoms, discharge the patient. I wouldn't have thought to question family dynamics or look for deeper patterns. I think, I said slowly, I learned that sometimes the diagnosis isn't in the blood work. Sometimes it's in the silence when you ask who made the tea. Sometimes it's in the text messages and search histories and desperate plans that have nothing to do with medicine and everything to do with human weakness. And I learned that our job isn't just to heal bodies. It's to see people clearly enough to recognize when they're in danger from sources we're not trained to treat. Hammond nodded. That's the lesson. Hold on to it. You'll need it again. It's been 18 months since Margaret Chen collapsed at Sunday dinner. I'm a second-year resident now, with an additional year of experience and the corresponding additional year of exhaustion. The Chen case remains the most challenging thing I've managed, not because of the medical complexity, but because of what it revealed about human nature. I saw Margaret 3 months ago at a hospital fundraiser. She was there representing a victims' rights organization, speaking about elder abuse and financial exploitation. She looked healthy, dressed in elegant simplicity, her silver hair cut short in a style that seemed to match her new life. Dr. Reyes, she approached me during the reception, a glass of sparkling water in her hand. No wine, I noticed. Probably never again. Too much risk of someone tampering with it. Margaret, you look wonderful. I feel wonderful. Most days. She smiled, but there was still sadness in it. David and I have dinner once a month now. Just the two of us. It took me a year to agree to it, but it's getting easier. What about Sunday dinners? Still can't do it. Maybe never will. Some things break in ways that don't heal completely. She took a sip of her water. But I'm volunteering at the library, teaching adult literacy classes, making new friends who don't know my story, building a life that isn't defined by what almost killed me. That sounds healthy. It's survival, but I'll take it. She paused. Have you heard about Lily? I had, through the hospital grapevine that tracked all our dramatic cases. I heard she's doing well in prison, got her GED, started taking online classes. She wrote me a letter, Margaret said quietly, 3 months ago, apologizing, explaining. She said pregnancy made her desperate, and desperation made her monstrous. Did you write back? No. I don't know if I ever will. She looked at me. Does that make me a bad person? That I can't forgive her? It makes you human, I replied. Forgiveness isn't owed, it's earned. And some betrayals are so fundamental that forgiveness isn't possible. That doesn't make you bad. It makes you honest. Frank died, she said suddenly. Heart attack 6 months ago, in prison. Ironic, isn't it? He tried to give me a heart attack, and he's the one who died from it. I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't feel anything when David told me, she continued. No grief, no satisfaction, nothing. Just empty. Is that normal? I think, I said carefully, that grief is complicated when it's mixed with betrayal. You're allowed to feel however you feel, or not feel. She nodded, seeming to accept that. Thank you, Dr. Reyes. For then and for now. For treating me like a person instead of just a patient. For being suspicious when suspicion saved my life. For sitting with me when I had no one else to trust. That's what we do, I said, echoing what I'd told her before. No, she corrected gently. That's what good doctors do. That's what healers do. The rest just practice medicine. She walked away after that, returning to her victims' rights organization colleagues, leaving me with my thoughts and a glass of champagne I wasn't drinking. Last week, I had a case that reminded me of Margaret, an 81-year-old man presenting with vague cardiac symptoms, fatigue, confusion, nausea. His daughter was his primary caretaker, devoted and attentive, never leaving his bedside. Something about her devotion felt off. I ordered an expanded tox screen without really being able to articulate why. The attending questioned the expense. The daughter questioned my suspicion, hurt that I would doubt her care. The tox screen came back positive for digoxin. The patient didn't take digoxin. The daughter had been stealing it from her own prescription and giving it to her father, hastening his decline so she could claim her inheritance and pay off debt. We caught it early. The patient survived. The daughter was arrested. And I thought about what Hammond had said. Sometimes the most advanced diagnostic tool we have is skepticism paired with curiosity. Sometimes it's remembering that evil doesn't always look evil. That betrayal often comes dressed in devotion. That the people asking if their loved one will be okay might be the same people who put them in danger. The new first-year residents started last week. I helped with their orientation, sharing what I'd learned in the past year and a half. I told them about Margaret Chen and the Sunday dinner that became a crime scene, about Halo and the algorithm that was right until it was catastrophically wrong, about all the ways medicine intersects with human darkness and human resilience. One of them asked the question I'd asked Hammond. How do you keep treating people with compassion when you know what they're capable of? I gave them the answer Dr. Santos had given me, but I added something of my own. You remember that medicine is about seeing people clearly, all of who they are, good and bad, and then choosing to help anyway. Not because they deserve it, but because healing is what we do. Even when the wound is caused by someone who should have protected instead of harmed. Even when the betrayal is so deep it seems unfixable. We try anyway. And if we can't fix it, another resident asked, then we bear witness, I said. We document what happened. We testify in court. We develop protocols so the next doctor catches it faster. We become part of the story that prevents the next Margaret Chen from dying at her family's hands. They nodded, trying to absorb lessons they wouldn't fully understand until they lived through their own versions. That's okay. That's how medicine works. You learn by doing, by surviving cases that challenge everything you thought you knew about human nature. I walked through the hospital tonight after my shift, following the familiar path from the ER to the residents' lounge. The fluorescent lights still flickered in the same patterns. The coffee still tasted terrible. Rita Kowalski still knew more than the attendings, but I was different. I'd learned that healing wasn't just about medical knowledge. It was about recognizing patterns that shouldn't exist, about questioning stories that were too perfect, about trusting the small voice that said something was wrong even when the data said everything was fine. I'd learned that families could be poisonous in ways no antidote could treat, that love could be weaponized, that trust could kill. But I'd also learned that survival was possible, that resilience existed, that someone like Margaret Chen could face unimaginable betrayal and still choose to move forward, to build a new life, to find meaning in teaching others how to avoid the trap she'd fallen into. Medicine had taught me about human darkness, but it had also taught me about human strength. And on balance, I thought the second lesson might be more important than the first. They say you never forget your first critical case, the one where everything you learned in medical school collides with reality in ways that textbooks can't prepare you for. Margaret Chen was mine. She taught me that sometimes the diagnosis isn't medical. Sometimes it's murder. She taught me that the most dangerous people can be the ones who claim to love you. She taught me that survival isn't just about keeping the heart beating. It's about finding the courage to live after betrayal. And she taught me that my job, our job as physicians, isn't just to treat the body. It's to see the whole person, including the threats they face from sources we're not trained to fight. I carry those lessons with me every shift, every patient, every case where something feels wrong but I can't quite articulate why. Because sometimes, not often, but sometimes, being suspicious saves lives. Sometimes asking why the granddaughter is too calm reveals she's planned murder. Sometimes ordering the extended tox screen that seems unnecessary catches the slow poisoning no one else noticed. Sometimes the most important thing a doctor can do is refuse to accept the obvious explanation and dig deeper. That's what saved Margaret Chen. That's what I'll carry forward into every case, every patient, every moment when my instincts say something doesn't add up. Because in medicine, like in life, the most dangerous threats often come from the people we're supposed to trust. And recognizing that, seeing it clearly despite the discomfort it causes, is the difference between adequate medicine and medicine that actually saves lives. Margaret sent me a card last month. It arrived at the hospital addressed simply to Dr. Noah Reyes, the resident who saved my life. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for looking past the obvious. Thank you for questioning what everyone else accepted. Thank you for being suspicious when suspicion seemed unkind. You saved my life by trusting your instincts over my family's performance. Never lose that. The world needs doctors who see clearly, even when what they see is ugly. Especially then. Margaret." I kept the card in my locker, next to my parents' photo and Mrs. Patterson's card from the Halo case. Reminders that medicine isn't just science. It's art and intuition, and the courage to question everything, especially, when questioning seems inappropriate. That's what they don't teach in medical school. That's what you learn in emergency departments at midnight, when a grandmother collapses at dinner, and the toxicology reveals that the threat came from her own granddaughter. That's what transforms a medical student into a physician. Not the knowledge in your head, but the willingness to trust what your gut is telling you, even when it contradicts what everyone else believes, even when it reveals truths no one wants to face, even when it means standing alone in your suspicion until the evidence proves you right. That's the lesson of Margaret Chen. That's the gift of survival. That's what I carry forward. Every shift, every patient, every moment when something doesn't quite add up, and I have to decide whether to investigate or accept. I choose investigation, every time, because that's what doctors do, not the adequate ones, the ones who actually save lives.